Welcome to another engaging episode of the Lead Gen Hustler Show. Today, we're excited to have Christian Oland, a visionary in the realm of lead gen and the mastermind behind RevGen Labs. Christian's journey from selling art on cruise ships to becoming a leading figure in ad tech and lead generation showcases his diverse experience and innovative approach to marketing. With RevGen Labs and RevReply, he has harnessed the power of ChatGPT-based email campaigns and advanced automations to revolutionize how businesses approach lead gen and engagement. Join us as we explore Christian's unique journey and the cutting-edge strategies that he deploys to be able to have scaled out his lead generation agency and even launch a SaaS all in the middle of that. Christian, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you, brother. That was the best intro I've ever received.
No, that's awesome. I like to take a moment to properly introduce my guests. And let's thank Justin Chief for introducing us as well. Thank you, Justin, for putting this together. We appreciate that. So to kick off, Christian, it would be just awesome if you just tell me a little bit about RevGen Labs and RevReply and just what you do in the space.
Yeah, cool. So I've been in the space a long time in different capacities. I created an agency called RevGen Labs. Again, we think that, we're in a really unique position. I think that we consider ourselves on the kind of bleeding edge of utilizing technology to our advantage. We've built a lot of incredible tools that no one else in the market has. We are constantly innovating and creating and reinventing the wheel. So that's kind of RevGen Labs over here. In that process, we started building a company called RevReply, and that's our SaaS product. And RevReply is really simply put an email autoresponder. But what it effectively does is as you run your outbound campaigns, whether you're an individual or an SDR or a salesperson or a sales team, as emails come in, we do a sentiment analysis on those emails. We do introspection about what we need to reply to those emails. Then we overcome obstacles and we push past any barriers and effectively lock down meetings by looking at your calendar and sending out meeting booking invites. And it is a digital SDR that works on the back end for those replies, right? The most important part, the thing that's the most kind of times relative to how quickly you respond, and that's the most important, that you respond quickly, and it just solves all of those pain points for you. So those are the two right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Try to keep it to two. Yeah, nice. That's really, really interesting. And I'd like to take it back to, from what I understand, you spent time on cruise ships and you were in the art space. So let's go back to how you got into getting started in your journey before, and then how that moved into you actually getting into an agency. Just talk me through that.
Oh man, that's a long one. So I was born in Minnesota, raised in South Dakota, went to college in Las Vegas, got 3 art degrees in oil painting, graphic design, and art history. Somehow landed on a cruise ship selling Picasso's, Rembrandt's, Dali, Chagall, Moreau, Renoir, Cezanne. All of these phenomenal artists for 10 years. And I think at that point, I realized I was actually meant for sales and not really meant for art. In how I actually got into this field, I think that I've always been a creative thinker. I'm a little ADHD. So if any of you other ADHD people are out there, I think that we're always looking for intelligent solutions to work smart, not hard. And so way back in 2014, I was figuring out these solutions to send bulk emails before a lot of these tools existed. I happened to get in close with Apollo very early on, and my co-founder Ramzi Al-Ramahi was global head of sales at Apollo. And we really connected. And so we're actually co-founders in all of this together. But, it started out with consulting for clients, for people that were with Apollo that needed help with it. Naturally, it shifted over into this space. But I think end of the day, it really came down to, I say, working smart and hard, but really working smart, not hard, right? To find solutions. And then harking back to the creativity, man. I think that that's something that's always, always something forefront for me is like, how can I make this fun and creative and find a solution that no one else has ever done before? And so those are just a big part to me. So I don't know if that really answers the question. That's
no, but it's super interesting to see like like you're starting it on and then like how that will transition. Like, how did you get into like Apollo's radar and like how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, so weird thing is when I started in the world as like this, account executive and inside sales, I was coming off of face-to-face sales, doing $250,000 sales and $1 million a week in selling of art.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a whole different game, which is crazy. I mean, it's a psychological warfare, really. But when you're sitting there and one word can mess up a $250,000 sale on a handshake agreement, it's a different thing. So somehow I transitioned into an account executive. Again, I was looking for those solutions. I came out to LA and started working in ad tech, so a company called Steelhouse, now MNTN. You may have heard of them. Ryan Reynolds, the actor, is their chief creative officer.
Oh.
And Ramsey and I worked there together. Ramsey had worked next door to Apollo when it was a Y Combinator in like 2015 in San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah, he brought him over there. Eventually, he left and went to Apollo, and the kind of path is like this, but the rest is history.
And that's crazy. And then, so how far are you into like the journey at RevGen Labs? Like, when did it get started? Like, how many years into this are you now?
Yeah, we're just about a year in. I mean, I was consulting years ago.
Yeah.
I built a mailbox warming tool early on that was it was okay. Could have used a better dev team at the time. But really, like, that was a couple years ago now. I think a year since we've been in the agency, and the Rev Reply, the tool that we're building, was born out of the agency, and are utilizing tools like N8N and Make for any of those people out there using automations. That's where it was born, and we kind of dropped a lot of our other kind of side projects to really focus on that, because we were like, wow, this really solves an incredibly massive problem for every salesperson ever. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, please. This is really good. Yeah. And what I wanted to understand is just like, at what point did you notice like the problem, which then outlined the ability to get into Rev Reply?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always been a very clear problem, right? Like, I know you've got plenty of experience in the space. Myself, let's say 10 years in inside sales. Even as you move up the ranks, responding to emails doesn't get any easier. In fact, it probably gets more tedious, right? I think we've all used tools, even like Apollo, for a long time, to the point where 2-3 years in, like, there was times when I never wanted to look at Apollo, right? And much less like, sometimes when you're having a down day and like that you really want to get in and write this, stop your flow or take time out when you've got a stacked calendar to spend a half hour to write a really thoughtful response to this person.
Yeah.
And so that's always been a thing. I just never knew that there was an easy solution until we started working with tools like Make and N8N. And it's not an easy solution by any means.
Yeah.
Right? This does layers and layers of complex AI and a few other things, but we built it and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like it responds almost immediately, right? So you don't want it to respond immediately. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
If someone responds to you in 8 seconds with like a 2-paragraph email, but like, let's say 5, 10, 15 minutes, as long as it's under really that 30-minute threshold, that's when you get the real value. Because if someone responds to you positively and they're still writing their email, right? And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I like this guy. Maybe we'll, out of the 18,000 emails I got in my inbox today, I'll maybe take a meeting with this guy. And he gets back to you in under 30 minutes while you're still in your little email session. The chances of you actually booking a meeting are incredibly high. It's 900% higher if you respond in the first 30 minutes. And so anyways, this tool became great because it works 24/7. It answers emails constantly, and there's no ego. So you can have it respond to like what we call hard no's, where someone is like, you can set it, right? But you can say respond to all no's, right? So someone might say, screw you, never, go fall off a cliff or whatever. And we'll be like, thanks, I really appreciate that, but just in case you're ever in the market, here's our one pager, and let me know if we can ever chat, right? Like in a way that like you and I would be like, well, screw this guy, like never talking to this guy again.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So, and then for all of our listeners to understand, like, so anyone that's getting into the lead gen space or has an agency, I think a big goal of a lot of lead generation agency owners is to be able to productize their offering and then move towards being able to scale in an efficient manner. And SaaS is something which has less moving parts to be able to achieve that. But an agency can actually enable you to achieve, to be able to move into these things. Or maybe the end goal is an agency. So it's really interesting to hear, like, Christian's identified this problem and then moved through to be able to build a SaaS to solve that while still doing the agency. But to come back to the agency, and then we can go back more into Rev Reply to see how it like aids campaigns.
Yeah.
What does the typical like service offering look like that you're delivering? Is it email? Is it email something else? Or
Yeah, we typically work in email. We do have other offerings as well, but we typically work in email. And again, I think that we are coming on a time where things need to be more multifaceted or more holistic or more multi-channel. However, that being said, email I think is still very, very functional. Like I've been saying this since like 2018 when I read this book. It's called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone by Stu Heineke. And if you're a creative person like myself and you're a little ADHD and you're a little bit like always trying to find ways to make email fun, I really suggest reading it because it's all about what Stu calls contact marketing, where he was a New York Times cartoonist. And so he was making personalized cartoons and he was making them on a scale like, 3 feet wide by 2 feet tall, like a big cartoon strip. And he was sending them out to people and he was getting phenomenal results. And he writes about all of these different methods in his book. And they're just like fun ways to be able to run those creative campaigns. And like I've been saying for ages, like this is incredibly cyclical. Like I wouldn't be shocked if you see a resurgence in like sending sending like letters and more of these contact campaigns where you're sending a gift or an object or a puzzle box or, enhancing, like taking their face and putting it on a superhero and sending them something. Like get creative with your channels. But yes, our primary focus will always start with email.
Yeah, email, and then you have an innovative approach to be able to engage individuals. Is it a monthly retainer? Is it a performance model? What does that look like? Do you have a setup fee?
Yeah. We like to typically start with retainer. We will do retainer plus performance as well with a bit of a setup fee at the beginning. Again, we'll waive that depending on the contract length. We are incredibly flexible. I think that Ramsey and I both, come from deeply rooted in this space. So we're very client first. We very, very, very rarely have churn. I think that, churn is somewhat inevitable in this space, right? The grass is always greener. Someone's always offering, hey, I'll charge you nothing but, $100 a meeting to go. And like low key, they go scorched earth on your TAM and just kind of destroy your reputation. But like, there's always going to be someone's, offering to do this for next to nothing, right? But we typically work on retainer. And we feel really good about how we work with our clients. Like even, in the last year, we've had, 1 or 2 clients churn for whatever reason, right? It's, again, trying some new system, whatever. And if they're ever unsatisfied, we always kind of make it square. So, hey, well, if you didn't, we want you to walk away feeling like this was like the best experience you guys have ever had with a lead gen agency. So when you go try this other agency, hopefully you see, again, the grass is still greener and come back.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we've like ran campaigns for months continuing follow-up and had people come back, so we're excited about how we do our method, right? We don't we will sometimes go on performance if someone wants to do that, but we feel like we're crushing it on retainer. So
do you have a typical starting point for an offer, or does it vary for each individual? For example, you're like, hey, we're doing this many domains and this many emails and this is our process, or and this many campaigns, or is it just like, I'm going to listen to what you say in a call and then I'm going to come away and propose something custom?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, like I could definitely walk you through our basic pitch structure.
Yeah, it would be awesome to just hear that. Just also to help other individuals who are looking to like understand how to formalize that as well.
Yeah. So we typically start So we kind of think of our structure like a pyramid, right? So we have our infrastructure, which is the base level of the pyramid, right? This is where everything important happens that affects deliverability, getting in the inbox, everything important, right? Then we have our kind of middle infrastructure, which is where the rubber meets the road, and that's our copy. And then third and finally, we have our autoresponder, right? Those are all kind of part of our core offering. Our typical client, we kind of like to pin ourselves to a typical SDR. So our price point is of that about a typical SDR, except for we think we can drive, 2, 3, 4x the performance of that. If someone wants to go above that, we have clients that range from, let's say, 5K to about 35K. And so oftentimes people just want to double. They say, hey, dude, we're loving what's going on. Let's just double the output. And so we kind of bracket that up tier by tier. With our typical offering, we would offer, we do what I call MDMI setup, multi-domain, multi-inbox. And we start with about 100 outboxes per person. We do incredibly high warm-up. So for those of listening that maybe don't know what warm-up is, that's where you build your reputation and kind of send emails to a circle of people that to build this reputation, like, oh, this is a real person having normal conversations, right?
Yeah.
So we'll do really low volume sending. So if we have 100 outboxes, we'll do like 10 a day max, and we'll do about 40 of those reputation building emails like that are warming emails on a private IP pool. And so the effect of this is like, this sounds kind of bad, but it's effectively laundering your emails, right? So we keep our volume really low, but we do a lot of warming. We're making sure we kind of stash those few emails into this much larger volume. And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, and from an infrastructure standpoint, like that's where the space is going to head.
Yeah.
Even so, 2 years ago, people had one domain, 2 domains.
Yeah.
Or let's say 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I was starting to start already. I think I had 15 inboxes approved on Apollo at the time. This is like 3 years ago. Shifting over, it's become commonplace to have 10 domains and 20 outboxes. We're really upping that to the next level. Really, anyone that's listening to this has probably heard some of Google's announcements recently. They are getting stricter by the day. And so you have to figure out how to combat that. So we not only do that, we're using multiple ESPs to make sure that we are diversifying our risk. So if one solution stops one day, we've got another solution already working for our clients. So that's our infrastructure level, to give you an outline on that.
That's awesome. No, that's very, very interesting. And just so we can understand, so we'd say 100 inboxes, 100 email accounts. That's obviously still quite high to be able to start with. So do you do starting off in a lower format, or is it okay, we're going to deploy 100, then we're going to launch our campaigns, and that's how we start and then scale up from there? Or is there a middle point where you start with 50 of those accounts and then you move up to the 100? And how do you approach that? Do you look at TAM and what's the logic there?
Yeah, so we always start with 100.
Okay.
We've built this structure, actually sometimes 125, but not to get too deep into the weeds. And we think that, again, this is what the direction of the space, and this is what will separate, the kind of layers as we see the space unfold in 2024, because it's going to get way more difficult for anyone using cold email in 2024. More people are trying to do it, even though it's getting harder to do. And people's inboxes today versus 3 years ago, the amount of cold emails that salespeople are sending out, it's 10x, right? Like I said previously, there's people coming in the space with these really bad offers where they're sending out bad copy, and they're literally sending scorched earth amount of emails, burning domains, doing all of these bad tactics. And what we hope is that by separating ourselves from that, right, doing a lot of outboxes, lots of low volume, that really diversifies the risk. So if one of those goes down, we're able to shut it down and rebuild it. So we start with 100, and maybe we're only sending out 2 emails on those ones.
Yep.
But we always
Okay.
start with 100 because we think that, again, it will offer some separation and it's a strong differentiator with our service.
I agree. And like you say, the landscape is changing and it's getting harder. And that's obviously a big reason why I come from the LinkedIn agency space. And
Oh,
we also had the 100 connection requests, and obviously at Expandy then enable people to be able to go to say 20 and have to get creative with how you leverage that and how you do that. But what I'm saying is that people moved over to doing email, and there is now a trend in where people who are doing, like, so they moved their LinkedIn agency to email, and they were like, it's just not high enough limits. But some people stuck and they got creative and they worked out how to do it well, and that was the standout. And I see that there's going to be a shift in 2024 where the people that are doing email are going to have to be able to get more creative. So things like what you're mentioning, to do 100 inboxes at super low volume, having a private warm-up pool, are the types of innovative tactics which you need to deploy to be able to actually pivot and evolve with the times, and then also potentially look at stacking in additional touch points, leveraging LinkedIn and these different activities. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's super relative, right? Expandy's gone
Yeah.
from motion where LinkedIn, I mean,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, what's separating the
It was
wheat
just
from the
throttled, right?
is what it's called. Sorry, say it again.
I was saying, yeah, like it had the throttle, like how Google have the limitations now, and like you said, yeah.
Exactly. So you guys have overcome those obstacles, and
Yep.
there's a few standouts that are still remaining.
Yeah, exactly. There's those agencies that are still smashing it because they have worked out how to innovate within a space. Because that's the key. You can stop and you can give up, or you can just understand what is the next thing I need to do to pivot into the space. Yeah. All right. So 100 inboxes for each client. Talk me through the process of someone signing with you, going through to getting set up and then going live. And is that you executing that? Do you have team members to do that? And yeah, just talk me through what that onboarding process looks like.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and then as a reminder, we can like kind of continue up the ladder too. So
yeah.
And so for us, for onboarding, it's really simple. We onboard someone. If you need to go quick, we can go quick, but generally we give it a solid month, right? That gives us time to build infrastructure right. We've launched as quickly as a week for clients in the past.
Yeah.
But first month is just a meeting every week. Every week we're locking down and honing in on your ICP. Every week we're looking for new angles we can take. Copy. We're developing and building all of that. We're creating the infrastructure for your autoresponder and things like, teaching your autoresponder about your company. And then last but not least, we're like working on your integrations because every company is different. Typically, our autoresponder, when positive emails come in, we'll do something like we'll make sure that we're sending them to a Slack. So your team or your CEO or whoever needs to have clear visibility has clear visibility. And then we're also sending those to things like your HubSpot or whatever other integrations that we need to set up. So
nice.
Yeah, it's pretty light lift. We just want to get to know you and start building a relationship.
Yeah.
And in that time, we're building and setting everything up.
And then that again is a standout differentiator. You have literally Rev Reply that is being stacked in to enable your clients to have someone to auto reply to your campaigns. And you're teaching it from the initial setup process, how to handle that type of ICP or business proposition and offer. That's such gold. Like, that's very impressive.
Yeah, it's cool. We again, we usually start with it with like a manual setting. So again, it will go to like, let's say it's come in, it's done sentiment analysis, it thinks something is good, it writes this email, it overcomes the objections, it puts all of your calendar times in it, and we'll have it send to a Slack where you can say confirm or edit, or this is good or this is bad. There's a couple different buttons. So you can have it on like a manual send. So effectively, while you're building trust in this AI, because let's be frank, not everyone trusts AI at this point, and that's totally fair. You're actually getting a layer of kind of where it comes in, it notifies you. So you're still getting that quick response time as long as you're, see the Slack message come up on your phone and you say, good, boom, send, you're good.
That's awesome. And then when it comes to like the different tasks to be able to execute to get the individuals live with their campaigns, are you getting multiple team members to do that? And what does that team structure look like if you are doing that?
We have, I mean, so we have a really strong CSM team.
Yeah.
And so again, we're usually, well, with every client that we onboard, Ramsey or I will be involved in the onboarding process as we ramp up. And then we will bring you on with one of our CSMs. One of ours is someone that Ramsey and I both worked with back when Ramsey was at Apollo, and I was training companies on how to use Apollo, and he's just whip smart. We will then start to continue to meet with you once a week and go through reporting. We'll join the call probably once a month and just make sure that we have things dialed in. So we also have, an interesting fact about us is because our team is so diverse. We're about 17 people right now, and we're we're building RevReply as a tool. So I would say half of our team is developers.
Yep.
So there's 3 founders, me, the COO, Ramsey, and CTO, Jay. Jake, okay, so Ramsey, global head of sales for Apollo. Jay comes from a company called Office Ally, where he was CTO, and for 15 years, he had like 65 devs rolling up to him. So he's really brilliant when it comes to developing product. So the nice thing about all of this is I've never seen another lead gen agency that's so heavily dev driven, right? If we need something, we can build it,
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been really great to build, to streamline things and build functionality.
Yeah, and just to bring it back to just so like the listeners can understand, like this all enables you to be able to more effectively handle the replies of your campaign. So it actually is just if we can take away, because obviously, when you're getting started, you wouldn't be able to build this in-house, but the evolution from Christian having this agency to be able to go and do this, to allow them to have a better service, but also out of that is born a SaaS product, which is a completely entire other revenue stream. So it's very interesting from that side as well. And what I'd like to talk about is just dive into understanding now, based off of everything that you've said, talking about campaigns. And before you showed me a Stanley Cup, so we can get into some fun stories there. Let's just first talk about how you create campaigns. How do you take the information from a client, and do you listen to what they say, or do you challenge it? And then how does it turn into a list? And then following that, how do you approach building out sets of campaigns, or if it's one? So just tell me how you approach that.
Yeah, so there's certainly a lot of, I wouldn't say it's challenging, but when we start working with a client to figure out their TAM, what we've found is clients' vision of their TAM and what their TAM actually is oftentimes quite different. So this is one of the few times we actually use a third-party tool, and I'm totally fine sharing what it is. It's called LeadGraph. LeadGraph has been a great tool for us as an agency to go in and we can get a client's list of their clients. Our client's list of clients. And we can process that through this system, and that will help identify what the actual TAM is. So people will often say, it's 50 million to 150 million. It's this, and this. And we can run their client list against that and say it's actually like 2 million to 20 million. So we need to redefine that.
Yeah, and then like clients can almost derail what you like they can actually be detrimental to the campaign if you don't do things like that, right? Because they can go, with such confidence, no, this is who we want to approach and this is how the copy needs to be positioned. But like if you don't challenge that, they could churn at a faster period of time.
Yep, exactly. So that's really where we start building. And then we do I would just say a lot of testing and iterating. I think more than the average company. We've built an infrastructure, especially with some of our GPT prompting and some of our automations to really test the waters of multiple things. So we kind of, and that's also how our campaigns run, because we typically run 3 different styles of campaigns. And within each of those styles, there's always like 3 iterations of campaign going on, to make sure that we continue to refine and like lock down ICP and TAM, because those are by far, I would say that and copy are really where the rubber meets the road, and the 2 most important things, and oftentimes where companies fail or succeed, really. So if you're missing either one of those, you're going to have a really tough time.
And in terms of like when you're getting started, how do you approach testing like TAM? Like how are you breaking that down? Are you breaking down and doing split tests of multiple campaigns, or is it like, what would you do there?
Yeah, so I think that kind of goes back to, again, the multiple campaigns, right? We run a evergreen copy campaign, if you will.
Okay. Yeah.
We run an incentive campaign, and then we run the GPT campaign or an AI campaign that's based off of triggers and automations. And what we found, and we could dig deeper into these if you'd like, but what we found is with our evergreen campaign, we tend to throw more of a wide net, along with our incentive campaign, right? So this is where we're finding people that have email blindness, if you will, for the incentive campaign specifically, like people that will not pull their hands out of their pocket to respond to an email if it was the last thing in, it's like their last day in the world, right? Like they would just not respond to a cold email. So that's for our incentive campaign. For our evergreen copy campaign, we know that if we're putting the right ICP in and we're targeting halfway decently, we're going to get really good responses, or we're going to get a decent response rate. And then for our GPT and AI written email campaigns, those are by nature incredibly focused. And so we run all of these campaigns. At the end, we start to review, like after a week, and every single week we'll go back in and review and say, hey, who is responding? Let's drill down deeper on this. So that's how we kind of start. We also have a couple researchers that will really build granular lists, because hyper segmenting, and probably anyone in the space will tell you, it's time consuming, but it's incredibly effective.
Yep.
And so you got to make sure that you're mixing both things, right? All of our processes, we ensure them by A, throwing a wide net in one way, and B, getting hyper granular in another. And so that's kind of all of our campaigns constantly. It's just make sure we're throwing a wide net still to uncover new opportunities, areas that are unseen, while being hyper focused in other and super vigilant in other areas.
What does the where did the idea come to be able to start like the evergreen campaigns, and like what is that as a concept, just so we can understand a little bit more?
Yeah, cool. I'll run through that. I'm kind of jumping around a little bit.
No, it's also interesting. Like I just wanted to ask about hyper segmentation. Like, what do you mean by that? But like, let's start at the evergreen, then we can maybe dive into just explaining a little bit more into like how do you approach segmenting as well, which would be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I can. Yeah, so I'll just I'll run through them how I might run through a potential client.
Yeah, right? Nice. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So our evergreen campaigns, obviously we've got years and years in the space. We also work with some of the best professionals in the space for our copy. So we have really close partnerships with people like Christian Bonnier and some of these other phenomenal copywriters that are at the best of their game. Like, I don't know the statistics for Christian Bonnier, but I would imagine that his copy has been behind at least a few 100 million emails at this point. So he has it absolutely dialed in. And so he writes these phenomenal sequences that, on first glance, they're just like magic, man. They just work. And so he'll help us write some sequences. We'll write our own. We'll work with our copywriting team. And we have a few other professional copywriters that we like to work with. And we'll put all of those in the pool for our evergreen copy, right? We'll work with our research team to do large groups of people to drop into that sequence, and then some hyper segmented groups, and we'll start to compare those. And so that evergreen copy is the basis of like what a lot of lead gen agencies are doing right now. Just, trying to make sure we've got good copy and putting lots of people in, right? Yeah. So that's our kind of one angle. Our second angle is this incentive campaign. So what I mean by that and you were cracking on me about this Stanley Cup. This is actually a
Guys, we're going to get to it. That's good. That's good.
Yeah, and that's, an incentive campaign is a way to get people to interact, right? So again, it's not like, hey, here's a $25 gift card. Let me get 10 minutes of your time. We keep it light, right? Like, hey, this Stanley Cup would look way better with your face on it. Like, can I send you over a customized whatever for 10 minutes of your time? We keep it really light and we keep it fun. And we try and make it even a little bit funny, because sometimes people just need that, right? Like some people are so sick of reading emails and whatever. And generally what we say to our clients is, look, like, this is a way to uncover people who may not typically reply to emails. If you're unsure of their fit, you can always qualify after they respond. So again, we have a client that is giving out Mont Blanc pens. So like $300, $400, $500 pens. And he's really particular about who we're sending that to, right? Obviously it's a $500 pen. But he likes to do another layer of qualification afterwards. And he'll say like, hey, just want to make sure, like, is this something that you might be in the market for in the next year? And to him, if the person says, yes, we're good to go, great. Have the meeting. If he says, hey, I think maybe, now's not the right time. Like people are pretty straightforward, right? Like people understand what what we're getting into. And yes, people could BS you or whatever, but realistically, you and I both know that this industry, all sales industries, are all about building relationships.
Yep.
So, like, what does it matter if you send someone a $30, $40 Stanley Cup? If you're building a good relationship that's worthwhile, that's what matters, right? And so, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So basically what you were saying is, within these campaigns, the way that you approach is you have these pillars. You have evergreen, which is a traditional model where you're going to be testing different ways to propose the problem and the offer. And then once you find what works, you continuously add people through that flow. That campaign exists just continuously, but it stops and starts based off of the data, of course. Yeah. And then you have these different angles, which are not a typical angle in terms of how to approach leveraging a signal. It's a strategy to be able to deploy a campaign, like sending a reward of value or a lead magnet or something within that, which enables someone to instigate a reply. That's another pillar of campaigns that you do. Then you have several more.
Yeah, so we've got evergreen, we've got incentive, and then the last one is our triggers and automations. And I think that these are the most fun. And you see people building them. I know you had Eric on last week. Obviously, he's one absolute goat in the space. He builds in clay quite a bit. We've built a lot of our triggers and automation. So we've got our AI campaigns, right? And we have we certainly utilize tools like clay, but we also have built a lot of our own internal processes and structures. So we're heavy on N8N. And so for those people that don't know out there, there's if you've ever heard of Zapier, it's like this thing that kind of links and does automations. And then there's the next level, which is make.com, which is really good as well. And then there's N8N, which is probably the most technically robust. You can do the wildest stuff in it, but it takes a bit of knowledge for coding and stuff. We're trying to release a lot of content on how to start building an N8N for first-time users in the next couple months, right? I'm not the best at social selling, but I know I need to do it. And so N8N content is a great value add for those people who are just trying to start using it for the first time. But yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about the incentive campaign, right? About the AI campaign. So we do a lot of triggers and automations. Again, we've learned from some of the greats. So like Max Mitchum is out there doing really cool stuff, and was started about like a year ago, maybe more. And we started building around the same time to build these triggers and automations that are really heavy buying signals. So, a classic, or what's now becoming a classic example, a year ago is pretty novel, but was like the hiring campaign. So we would scrape every day companies that are hiring for X position, which really shows a company's pain points. And so you're like, if you're going after a company that's let's say, you're an advertising agency and you want to run the ads for a company, and they're hiring for a digital marketing manager or a paid media manager or a CMO or something, we can scrape that we can scrape that job posting.
Yep.
We can pull out and extract all of the pain points, so the things that they're saying, hey, we need someone to fill this void. We can scrape the company, we can scrape the person and take their LinkedIn, and then we can write an email saying, hey, noticed you're hiring for a digital marketing manager. I imagine you've got pain points X, Y, and Z. My company can help you do 1, 2, 3 by, doing A, B, and C. By the way, noticed you love mountain climbing. I just got back from Yosemite, right? And so you can build these really hyper personalized emails that really hit on pain points and are incredibly relevant. The other thing that we do that I think is unique to our company, I think a lot of people are trying to figure this one out, and we've got it a good head start on it, is really doing social listening for more than just one trigger. And so we're kind of building what we call is like our master trigger, where we're listening for all different kinds of things: product announcements, hiring announcements, growth. There's literally 70 or 80 triggers that you can be listening for constantly, and we're funneling them all into one place. And then after they come through, we say, hey, is this a valid reason to reach out to this company based on what our client is reaching out to people for?
Wow.
Right. So, and along with that, using data too. So
yeah.
So to go back to this kind of paid media example, we have a client that does digital advertising, and we had been scraping 100 data points from SpyFu. Not scraping from SpyFu. Don't worry, SpyFu. We're getting we have a subscription with you. Don't worry. But from SpyFu and from a couple other data sources that SpyFu does potential ad spend, and then we were doing another one that does traffic sources.
Yep.
And we're putting those into a pot, right?
And where's the pot? Is that in NH or is it?
It's not in N8N. That's in like
NAN. Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's in like GPT through the API, but basically it will read all of these data points and it will pick out, like, out of hundreds of data points, what is the most valuable reason that you could potentially reach out to this company. So we're now like sifting through 100 data points, narrowing it down to like 2 or 3, and we can say, hey, company XYZ, I noticed your ad spend went up last month, but your traffic went down last month. What are you doing to combat that, right? Or how are you trying to fix that for next month, right? Or maybe it says, hey, I noticed your ad spend went up by 50% and your traffic only went up by 10%. What are you doing to, maximize that traffic? We can help you amplify that with a connected TV campaign.
That's crazy. How did you even get to the point of being able to execute something like that? Because obviously that is like the craziest thing I've ever heard, that you're able to track hundreds of different intent points and then connect those into GPT and then be able to put them into a list and then have placeholders and variables. Is that the flow then? So monitor the intent points, then following that, tie it towards where you identify there is a point, using ChatGPT to acknowledge and register what it needs to look for each client's points. And then you can feed it into like a clay waterfall where you can add the variables or just put it straight into a sequence. Is that how you do that?
Yeah, well, we don't use clay for that purpose typically, although we are trying to get more back into clay. I mean, Eric is really doing some incredible stuff, and he's a very open book, and we want to make sure that we're staying bleeding edge with that type of stuff too. Yeah. But for all of our stuff, we build it in-house, and we've built our tools to do social listening in-house. Once they come in, we kind of filter them, and we've always kind of made sure that, hey, we're not afraid to spend on our prompting, because one thing that we know will happen is the prices of prompting will go down. So something that was maybe a 5 or 10 cent prompt, like all together, right, to get this one email, 8 months ago is now, a half a penny. And that will even go further down later down the line. But if you're able to, you'd be amazed at how well, if prompted appropriately, GPT is able, or AI is able to pick out the value props and tie those together into the physical form. So again, you can say, hey, like, pick out the most valuable things here, or the most valuable reason to reach out based on this data. And it can then put that into another paragraph, and then you can say, okay, here's the data that you need for why to reach out. Here's the data on the person. Here's the data on the company. Now write this absolute banger email. And, that's the way that you can kind of proceed with that.
Okay, so yeah, that's crazy. And then to summarize that, to get started, you came up with these different creative ways to approach campaigns to enable your clients to get the best results. And then probably like the initial start of using GPT was what you just said in terms of prompting, but then you were like, what if you could monitor by intent signals and make this better? And then that's how it progressed, and you have the capability to, because you have in-house development, so you can build out to that approach and go down that road.
No, everyone can build this in N8N, right? Everyone can do what we do. It takes some time and it takes some spending, building your expertise in it. But I think it's really, really important, because here's like one thing that I think will impact everything in 2024. And I think the term speed delete is kind of dorky, but what I think is incredible about these trigger and automation based campaigns is they are intent data before intent data exists. So yes, people are using things like Bombora, or maybe you're in Apollo and you're using the recently funding trigger, right? But like really, that's like, it's just getting incredibly played out. And so if you think about it for yourself, right? If you're going to go review a new SaaS product that you might want to use, you typically go on Google, you search for this area, and you find some list that's probably incentivized, or that some affiliate is probably getting a kickback from. But you go through this list and you try and find the one that's like, these 5 are definitely like not advertised or getting affiliate money, so these are probably unbiased. I'm going to look at these 5.
Yeah.
And you hit up, all 5 of them. 2 of them don't get back to you or have some like extra like layer that you need to go through. So you've got these 3 left. One of those 3 is going to probably win your business, right? Now, the same thing happens nowadays in cold email. So if you're reaching out to someone because you see they got funding, well, if you're the 50th person to reach out to them and say, hey, I see you got funding, can I get some of your money? Like it's going to be a hard no, right? You need to be in those first 3 people.
Yeah.
And so when you're listening and you hear on Twitter someone say, hey, we just hired this new COO, we're proud to announce. And then you're the first person that day to reach out to that person and say, hey, congratulations on your new role. I imagine you're reevaluating your tech stack. We can come in and blow you away by doing X, Y, and Z. There's a high likelihood that you're going to get that meeting and potentially that business. So everything is now going to become a matter of relevancy and speed. So if I'm the first person to reach out to you, I mean, like the first person to the well drinks, right? So like it's going to be incredibly important to be doing the social listening so you can get there first, or even we give CEOs on a daily basis observations, like let's say that advertising campaign that I just told you about, that even they weren't aware of. So like they've responded like, oh, really? Like, wait, we spent way more on advertising and we didn't get more traffic. Thanks for letting me know. Like, I'm gonna reach out to my CMO now, and also yes, let's have a meeting. So, anyways,
if someone wanted to get into this, just so we'll go on to the next topic, because we spend a lot of time in the campaigns, but this is very interesting. How would someone approach getting into it, which wanted to do it without the the dedicated spend to be able to get an engineer? Is there a way for them to be able to leverage a tool to listen to these different triggers and points that you could direct someone to, or a point of action to be able to do this, in an achievable way?
Yeah. I mean, it's all very achievable. I certainly got here partially. Again, this last couple years has been a real whirlwind with. If you guys don't know Jesse Willett, add him on LinkedIn. His SaaS Yacht Club has been vital to communicating with other like-minded people, and I think that's why we're all pushing the barriers now, is because
that's why we're here, right? Like we're all in these underground groups watching Jesse, Eric, and it's leveling us all up.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's like Vaibhav from Smart Lead, Nick from Leadbird, all the dudes from Client Ascension. And those are, great. They're all great voices in the space. There's so many people coming out with so much great content.
Yeah.
And then also like us together, we were all disparate back in the day. We were all spread out, and now we're able to all like push each other. And it has been, I think the progression in the last year has been incredible. And so I think really that if you can get into any of these groups, ping Jesse on LinkedIn or join SAS Yacht Club if you can find it. I don't know the link off the top of my head.
Even ping me, I can add you. We've got access. So yeah. But,
Exactly. And then once you get into those, again, every day there's a new kind of class of people coming in and learning these things from the basics. But you can certainly start with tools like Make to build your first automation. Like, I've helped so many people build their first automation, and it may be as simple as like, send this thing to this thing. And I remember the first time I did it, I was like, wait, I never have to do this mundane thing again. Like, oh my God. Yeah. And so you can definitely start exploring Make or N8N if you're for it. And hopefully, I think there's going to be a lot more content on how to utilize these platforms in a sales perspective. Really, for starting, I really enjoy. I mean, Clay's one hell of a tool. I also really like GPT for Sheets, which is now a little bit paywalled. There was a tool called Get Cargo, and what those allowed you to do is start making changes in mass, right? So, yes, when GPT came out, everyone was saying, oh, okay, like, cool, I can write an email if you go over to ChatGPT and you put all of the details in and you write it, and it takes like as long as it would take to write an email, right? But you need to use these tools like Clay or GPT for Sheets where you can go row by row by row. GPT for Sheets is free. Or it's incredibly low value. I think they put like $9 price tag on it. But start exploring in GPT for Sheets, because you can take a list of your contacts and you can say, equals GPT. What does this company do? And it can do SEO data, and you can do that for 1,000 companies at once. Right?
So the reality is, if you're not doing this, you are lagging behind. And yes, you can say that a short, quick speed of getting a campaign live, of just leveraging something like Apollo, pulling the lists, exporting the data, validating the lists, go live the copy you've created based on the problem is sufficient. And you may get replies, but to take it to that next step or to test in parallel is really key. And obviously there's lots of bells and whistles when we can all get involved in. So if you are just getting started, maybe start with evergreen and then look at what you can do to be able to level up and take it from there, or level it up from the start. Who knows?
I mean, dude, all of us are open books. I'm always excited to meet new people. Like I went into an entrepreneurs group last week. I've gone into some accelerator groups in the past couple months where I'm trying to teach people these basics, because honestly, dude, it's going to get really tough. It's going to get incredibly tough for the average person to stand out, simply because, like I said at the beginning, the inbox is 10x more full, and there's 10x more people putting emails in there, and there's way more people just spamming about, and all of these things. And that's why Google's cracking down. But that's still, as a regular account executive or sales director or whatever, it's going to be incredibly difficult, because even a year ago, people are like, read a book about the person and say you read their book and talk about, like, put a line from their book. It's like, dude, no one has time for that. It's impossible. It's a losing battle. So you have to be adaptable to these tools. And so if I were to say, for anyone who's just starting, Apollo is good. I would suggest using something like, if I were to say a basic tech stack, right? I would say get your data from Apollo. There's also other tools out there if you get on some of these SAS Yacht Club and some of these things, where you'll find ways to be able to pull more data or larger swaths of data. But make sure that you're able to get a lot of data. Once you get that data, make sure that you're cleaning it and hyper vigilant in cleaning it with a tool like Reune. Their lifetime deal on AppSumo is phenomenal. It's the longest running lifetime deal ever. And Reune will help you with your data hygiene, because again, what's going to happen is you can't hit the spam bot. Like you can't get lots of spam hits or bounce backs or blocks in 2024, or you're going to burn your whole domain. Make sure that you at least start with a multi-domain, multi-inbox strategy. A tool like SmartLead or Instantly is really good with that. So we're talking data from Apollo or Apollo-like provider. So inexpensive data. With Reune. Make sure you're doing a multi-domain, multi-inbox setup. You can get on one of these groups. You can ping me. You can ping you. For people that set up lots of outboxes, can do some of these setups for you at low cost. And then make sure you use a tool like Instantly or Smartly where you can do some of these big unlimited warm-ups. Make sure your messaging is tight, and that's the place to start. I'm trying to think of start to play.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very valuable. And just to jump ship a little bit into I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges that you maybe have gone throughout the time, like from RevGen Labs all the way through to Rev Reply. And yeah, I know we've spoken about like challenges in terms of the email landscape, but like internally with the agency, have you had any of the things? Have there been things where you've had to pivot, or clients churning and having to, or whatever it is? What have you experienced, and kind of how have you got through that?
Yeah. So I've taken maybe not a different approach or a different tack, but I think that what's really important if you start in this agency mindset, right, and you're trying to do this, is first off, make sure you got all of your pieces tight, right? We don't need you don't need to be perfect, right? You'll learn, you'll probably churn clients. Before I had a true agency, I churned a couple clients long before RevGen Labs. This is 2-3 years ago when I was in this learning phase. It's gonna happen, right? But do what you can to make sure that you maintain positive relationships if that does. And then as you're going along, make sure you're building out infrastructure ahead of time. So we've tried to go really heavy on building a scalable agency, and we've been very lucky to be able to do so because we thought far in advance. Finding a good quality CSM, or basically client success manager, is worth so much. And I know, like, as you're getting started, you can't spend a grand here, a grand here, a grand here, a grand here. But as you start having income coming in, make sure that you're looking ahead. How am I going to be when I scale to 5 clients? How about when I hit to 10? What are my bottlenecks going to be here? So prepare and find a good CSM and build incredible SOPs. And if you can, sorry about that. I didn't mean for that.
No, that's good. There you go, balloons as well.
Yeah. So, find a good CSM, build incredible SOPs, and start thinking in advance and start building a strong framework to scale and grow, because that's what every agency, including myself, we're still hitting that. Like there's these, massive dudes in the space like Nick from Leadbird that, is now scaled to hundreds of clients. And it's like, I'm trying to get a minute on his calendar to say, hey, what's going to happen when we hit, 50 or 75 or 100 clients? And so those guys have all been there and stepped in front of us, but just make sure that you build a really strong, robust
systems. Systems. And obviously, like you said, just focus on generating the immediate revenue, but do think about not getting lost in when generating the client results, because you can very quickly fall into a pattern of having to be able to attain new clients, serve the clients, and then you don't take a step back and work on the business, which is a big problem. And by on the business, having the right processes to ensure that you can scale efficiently and support the clients from the start of their journey through to the end without that falling on yourself, or you will actually slow down your growth and ability to grow, right? That's why you're saying what you're saying, which is really important. So, a fun question that I wanted to just ask: if you had to start out again in the space, like, what vertical would you approach, or would you just go completely agnostic?
I think, all right. So I would do it again. I would go a little bit with what right?
Yes.
So run a campaign for an industry or vertical that you're well versed in, that you can find repeatable success in, right? So if you've got one of those, go for it, right? So for me, advertising was a space where I know if I bring someone on that fits this, I'm going to win with them.
Yeah.
But while doing so, go wide, because you are going to fail. Not every campaign is going to be perfect. You need to learn what verticals are really difficult and which ones are easy. The thing to think about is, for us, is always average deal size. So it makes sense for us to run a campaign for a company whose average deal size is, like, the lifetime value is 5K or 20K or 50K or 100K, because if we're charging, whether it's $6,000 or $20,000 a month, if their average deal size is 100K and we think we can get them enough meetings to close one deal a month, it absolutely justifies the cost.
Yeah.
But if someone is selling a $10, subscription service, it's not going to get, it's not going to be fun for either party. Let's just put it that way. So again, if it isn't fun, make sure that you do right by that client, right? Make sure that if you have to extend the campaign, if they say, hey, this isn't working because you've only driven us enough leads to cover like half of your cost, continue to drive that out for the client and make sure that you do right by the client, but allow yourself to potentially fail. I would say, look for average deal sizes that are probably twice of what you charge on a monthly basis.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And in terms of like how many clients you at now, like where are you sitting at today?
Yeah, so we're at like we probably about, I think, like 18.
Okay, awesome.
Again, we have the capacity to scale right now. Again, we're doing that constant flux,
That's
right? We're trying to get ahead of, okay, we had 2 CSMs, now we need a 3rd CSM. Let's get it there before we bring on more clients. But quite frankly, we've got an incredible team. Ramsey, my co-founder, having come from Apollo, and me working heavily in the space for so long and having such a talented CTO, it just works really well, and we're able to get in front of a lot of this stuff. We've got a lot of connections in the space. So we're able to find good referrals for strong CSMs. So another piece of advice I would say is, like, this type of environment where there's 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 brilliant minds in the same space, and some of, like, in Smart Lead Slack, in Clay's Slack, in Jesse's group, and all of these brilliant people are putting their brains together. Like, get involved in that. Have good conversations. Reach out to people and say, hey man, can I get 30 minutes on your clock? Like, would love to pick your brain for a minute. But while doing so, make sure you add as much value back as you can, because I'm always down to meet with someone. But if I see someone come into maybe like I've got a private group, which again, if hit me up if you want an invite, but if someone comes in and they just take, no one really wants to necessarily help that person as much as a person that's constantly give.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah, just my 2 cents.
No, that's awesome. That's really awesome. And as a final couple of questions to be able to end this. Yeah, it's been a really interesting episode. Just what are your intentions to be able to scale out over the next year, and how do you see yourself scaling? And you can also touch on RevReply as well if you want to, and how that's going to be a big driver in that. But how do you intend on scaling out over the next year or two?
Yeah, so man, we're so excited about RevReply, and so there's this thought is that the reason that we shifted from RevReply, right? So I've got a tool that is kind of a smart lead competitor, about 90% of the way built. I've got a warm-up tool, and I don't really need to. When we found RevReply, we stopped everything. We said, let's run after this. It solves an incredible problem that no one has solved yet. So we are building it, and we will decide, I think, in the next 6 to 9 months, if we will continue to build that vertically and focus on that and say, hey, this is like a Calendly. Like, we want to be the Calendly of the space, or the Zoom of the space. We want to just hyper focus on this vertical, or if we go horizontal. So in other words, you can tell based on what we've talked about that our tools and our capabilities do everything a BDR does. And so we're building some really agentic AI. So like I said, this AI that actually, like what I was talking about with data points, instead of having to feed it data points, you start talking to it and it says, I'm going to go get those data points. So I'm going to go get data points, recent news. I'm going to pull everything that I can, and then I'm going to put it all together and write these emails. And so we're really on the verge of building this potentially fully agentic model. And I think a lot of the what I'm calling BDA, business development agents, or SDA, and everyone's got their AI, BDR, whatever. Like, I'm calling it BDA. That's going to be nice. But I think that it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? People are kind of essentially running a lead gen agency and really saying, hey, we're this BDR AI thing. I think within a year we would be able to get to that. And so the decision will be is, hey, do we build it vertically, or hey, do we go horizontally and try and build all of our pieces together in a truly agentic fashion, which again, we're working with some brilliant people. Soham Sarkar is a great, he's a close friend of mine, absolutely brilliant in AI. I think he understands AI and sales in a way that no one else in the space does. We're working closely with him, and we'll decide, hey, do we build these tools to go horizontally or vertically?
That's awesome. And then with the agency, what are you looking to be able to achieve as well? Just to understand that.
Agency, man, I love it. And I think we will continue to expand. Again, we're hitting these, trying to keep forward thinking to prevent from hitting any bottlenecks. And as long as we can do that, we can keep scaling. So there's some ballers in the space that do, that have 100 clients, 150 clients. I think that we can build out that infrastructure as well. So it's been a lot, but we're racing towards both.
That's awesome. Yeah, there are some aspirational people, Nick, Andre, like shout out these guys who, well, impressive journeys, like we all aspire to, and we watch them. So to end on a final question, actually it's not true. There'll be one last one. So I just, with every guest, ask each person to be able to ask the next guest, which is a lead gen agency owner, just what would you like to ask them? An interesting question.
Sure.
So I'll start off with asking you what Eric Novostowski has asked you, and he did that in the episode. So he wanted to understand, what was your framework that you sit down when you go to write copywriting? Do you have a framework that you leverage?
Dude, that's like the hardest question.
Yeah.
That's the eternal battle. And of course, Eric would ask a real zinger.
Yeah.
So we use so again, Eric is probably the GOAT in coming up with creative ideas and being able to implement them. There is a lot of different ways to tackle this problem. We build with a mixture of the client input and our own tools. We've got a framework for building kind of an AI profile. And once we build that AI profile, we start to focus on which of these data points can we actually extract and how would we go about doing that. And so that's where we'll first start to look for what triggers are going to be most effective with this client. And should we see if there's any sort of data points that we can get to facilitate that addition. And so once we have those, we kind of spread out into our three areas, right?
Yeah.
So we start out with building rock solid evergreen copy. Then we build the incentive, which is pretty easy, but we try and think of something fun or unique to that vertical. And then last but not least, we go into AI and start to build these different prompts to try and sift through all of these data to create these outbound emails. So that's my infrastructure. Eric's approach is incredibly granular and incredibly thoughtful. And I'm sure if any of you guys check out, I'm sure you've seen some of his YouTube videos, but dude, they're awesome. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic. So the next person I'm speaking to is Manuel from Sales Playbook, who is in Germany and has an impressive agency on their side. And they, what do you want to ask him? What would you like to be able to pass on as a question for him?
Let's see. There's going to be a lot of hurdles in 2024 in terms of obstacles and things tightening down and getting more difficult. Where do you think an average BDR, SDR, account executive, or agency should?
You got the cat coming in on the question as well.
On the question, what are the biggest pitfalls to avoid for an average person, right? So to make sure that they have success, and what are the biggest things that they should focus in on to make sure that they stand out from the crowd?
Okay, awesome. I'm going to clip his answer and I'll send it to you so you have that. You can see what was said. All right. Well, this was awesome. Thank you, everyone. If you stayed with us an hour and 10 minutes, it's been a pleasure. We have covered a lot of gold. You can even Oh, there's your cat. Hello.
Oh,
And,
this is Stevie, the one-eyed wonder. He's a pirate
Stevie,
cat.
the one-eyed wonder. Hello. Yeah, Stevie and Christian. It has been incredible and a great conversation hearing about your journey at RevGen Labs and RevReply. Thank you for your valuable insights and joining me on the Lead Gen Hustlers show. So where can people go to find more about what you do and get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Check out RevGenLabs.com. Check out RevReply.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Again, we are an open book. We are always willing to help people. We are always willing to help groups, organizations, whatever, get up to speed, free of charge. So look us up on RevGen Labs or RevReply. If you want to get on the beta for RevReply, just ping me. That's the best way to get direct to get the first exclusive access. Outside that,
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Ciao.
No, thank you very much, brother. Can't wait to talk to you soon and get over to LA.
Yes, 100%.